What's up, everybody? So, real quick, if you haven't watched my video before this one, please go ahead and watch that so this will make sense. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you in that video to watch the video I'm going to react to now. So I need you to do both of those things. And trust me, you won't be disappointed. And I'll explain in that video why you should do that. But what I have in front of me here today, ladies and gentlemen, is some silver that is not just regular silver. This is silver that they're not making anymore. And I have a variety of that. I absolutely love silver. It's not just a monetary metal, but an investment down the line, because this stuff here, in accordance to the things that are, we want to buy, it'll cost less to buy them, less and less in accordance to the prices of these. So what we have here today is Luke Broyles. I think he probably did the best explanation for beginners. If you don't have Bitcoin or anything like that, or if you do have some Bitcoin, if you haven't watched this video, you're going to learn a lot about the history of humanity, why things are the way they are now, and it's just absolutely outstanding. So let's jump right into this, and I'll be talking through the video.
This is Luke Broyles with 21st Century Finance, and today I want to make a video basically explaining Bitcoin for the average person. I know that it will not be perfect, but I want to attempt to make the best explanatory video for Bitcoin that I possibly can. Before we get going, I have three caveats and disclaimers I want to give here up front. First and foremost, I encourage you to take these thoughts and points and really think about them before you dismiss, laugh, or ignore them, because I thought Bitcoin was pointless for years. I heard these arguments, I didn't really understand them, and that's mainly because I didn't take time to understand them, because I thought they sounded so absurd they couldn't possibly be true. But I encourage you to watch this video all the way through, perhaps rewatch it, or look up other people's opinions on the subject and come to your own conclusions. But I really encourage you to think about these things, because it truly could be one of the most important ideas of your lifetime, and we'll get to that more in just a moment.
Yeah, same with me. I was the exact same way when I first heard about Bitcoin. This is a 1996. I have a few of them here, and these are the more rare Silver Eagles. They don't have a lot. They don't make these anymore. And this is one of the rare mints. But yeah, I didn't want to listen to Bitcoin. I thought it was a Ponzi scheme, to be honest with you. I thought it was some crap. I thought it was the same as all the other cryptos and things like that. I only listened to people when I first started that weren't into Bitcoin. And I was listening to the naysayers, and boy, was I wrong.
The second thing I want to say is that Bitcoin is not about getting rich. A lot of people think it is, and that it's just trying to get rich quick and make a quick buck, and that's mainly because of its volatility, which will be addressed in this video. But the different perspective I would like to come at it from for you in this video is that it's not about getting rich, but instead it's about keeping up with the increasing rate of technological change. All of us, especially with the Western world, are very aware of how quickly technology is changing, updating, and upgrading, and the points in this video are really going to emphasize how much that is only going to continue to speed up. And Bitcoin is about staying on top of that rate of change, and it's one of the most important, if not the most important thing to understand when it comes to the rest of the 21st century and the rate of technological change. So this disparity here, I really want to be in the back of your mind during the duration of this video. And the third thing here, really quickly, for those that are more technically savvy, I would just want to clarify, this is not going to be discussing how Bitcoin works so much. I'm not going to get into all the jargon and computer science stuff that would go over most people's heads. I'm just going to stick to the why Bitcoin matters and why it's important for the average person, because my goal is for the majority of people watching this video who are hopefully brand new to Bitcoin, that they I don't want to overwhelm them, and I don't want to confuse them. So we're going to keep it extremely simple for the average person, and we're going to keep it mainly on metaphors and parallels and everything of that sort. We're not going to focus on getting rich or how much money can you make, but instead we're going to focus on technology, and I encourage you to think of these things sincerely. So without further ado, let's get right to it.
All right, guys, let's dive into it. You guys ready? Let's do it.
The first thing that needs to be understood here is that the baseline for humanity is poverty. You know, if you go back to the very beginnings of human civilization, everyone was poor. You know, no one had consistent heat, had consistent housing or food or anything of that sort. If you had a minor disease, it was basically a death sentence of sorts. And as a function of time, technology has made everything cheaper due to human ingenuity and free markets and the ability to innovate and discover new forms of energy and technology. We've come up with a incredible amount of inventions that have made our lives easier and more prosperous for lower and lower costs. For example, light only gets cheaper and cheaper when you go from fire, the first kind of light that we were able to manipulate, to then going to the candle and to the lamp, and then from there to the primitive light bulbs, and now we have advanced light bulbs, and this will only continue to get better. Light bulbs and our channeling of light will only get more and more efficient. Same thing with energy, same thing with housing, heat, food, water, etc. I should not have to elaborate on this too much. Hopefully you are intelligent enough to observe it in your own life, and I'm sure you are, just how rapidly our lives are able to improve in terms of prosperity and economic survival, because and the point is, this is all because of technology, and that technology as a force makes everything cheaper. Basically, you can think of the average person's life today as being far more prosperous than, say, even a billionaire's 100 or 150 years ago. You have a wide variety of luxuries that they couldn't have even imagined. You have the internet, you have air conditioning, you have more variety of food than all these rich people of the previous generations had. And basically what this comes down to is that the most important factor for determining your prosperity of life is not your nation of origin. It's not even your family or your religion or your belief system that you come from. And obviously these things are very, very important. But the number one determining factor of how prosperous your life is going to be and how long you're going to live is actually what century are you born in? What era are you born in? What is the degree of technology in your society? That is basically the driving force of human history. You can think of human history as basically trending from complete and universal poverty to complete and universal prosperity. Humans don't change, humans' brokenness and benefits don't change. It's only the technology that changes.
Yeah, that's funny. I used to talk to my daughter about that all the time. I would tell her, hey, the things that we have today, windows, TVs, running water, hot water, cold water, all this stuff that we have, they come standard. Like, this is standard equipment right now. You know what I mean? And in comparison, you take a billionaire, like he said, hundreds of years ago, even 200 years ago or 100 years ago, even if they had the money, they couldn't buy it because it didn't exist. So literally, I always tell her right now, in comparison, we're living like kings and queens right now.
And when we can think of poverty going down, we can also think of prices going down, because the prosperity it takes to climb out of poverty, it becomes less and less expensive over time as technology becomes better. And this has been one of the most incredible trends of the last century or couple centuries here. It's just the rate of destruction of poverty. This is objectively a wonderful thing, and this should make everyone extremely happy and extremely optimistic. A mere 200 years ago, at the turn of the 19th century, 4 out of 5 people, 80% of the human population that was currently alive at that time, was in poverty. And today, it's barely 10% here. It is just a cliff, a nosedive of poverty over the last 200 years. And this is one of the horrible things where people fear overpopulation and everything like that. And yes, these are problems, but the reality is the global population has boomed in this time, and yet poverty has declined. Even though we use so much more energy, we use so many more resources and all that, the rate of people being able to live prosperous, long, fulfilling lives continues to go up as we have more humans with more ingenuity, and technology continues to build on itself, and emergent systems continue to stack upon each other, which we'll get to more in just a moment. This is objectively a good thing, and especially if you've lived in the last 30 years or so, it has been the fastest decline in poverty globally. This is a wonderful thing. You can just see this complete free fall here from the 1975 or so onwards, with the invention of the computer and the internet and globalization. It's just completely collapsed poverty, and this is obviously a good thing.
That's an amazing chart. I mean, it really is if you really think about it. It put things in perspective. I was born in 1975, speaking of that. And I remember my parents and my uncles and aunts and stuff, because I had Ataris and ColecoVisions, and we had computers at our school and stuff. And they'd always say, we didn't have any of that stuff. You know what I mean? Then when I was in my teenage years, the internet came out. I really didn't use it in my teenage years until I was in my 20s and stuff. And it's just unbelievable how technology can make a big difference in our lives, and it makes it so much better.
Now, if that's the case, why do prices go up over time? When you look at any picture from 100 years ago or 50 years ago, basically the price of anything and everything, any good, any service, is more expensive today. Our lives are far more prosperous than they ever have been in history, and yet virtually every market is near an all-time high in terms of its price. Why is this the case? This doesn't make any sense if you really think about it. It's inherently a paradox. And that's because the energy leak in cash and the cash supply is faster than the leak of technology.
Energy leak in cash. I never heard it stated that way. Very interesting.
As technology becomes more abundant and there's more and more goods and more services and more prosperity, the rate of that expansion for everyone is dwarfed by the leak in cash. Basically, the way you can think of this is from an engineering perspective. We're really going to focus on this today in this video, is that these are open systems. These are two open systems, technology and cash, the goods, services, and commodities that technology brings, as well as the cash, the various fiat currencies of the world. These are two open systems. And so the whole reason that prices go up, despite technology forcing the real cost purchasing power of goods and services to go down, is because cash leaks faster than technology. And why do we do this? Why don't we just have cash track along with technology? Why don't we just have cash be a fixed supply, where we're not increasing the supply of money? Well, the reason we do this is because if we were to tighten, that would cause a credit collapse. If you have a system that's based on credit and debt and yields and getting return on money, you simply can't do that in a world where technology is forcing prices to go down. Because if you have that, then debt gets more expensive over time, and the interest rates cause the whole system to collapse. And governments don't want this, people don't want this, corporations don't want this, nobody wants a credit collapse. And so what we do is we always take the easy way out, and we just print more money, and we basically break the ledger where 1 + 1 no longer equals 2, but 1 + 1 equals 5. We force math not to work in order so we can prevent a credit collapse and have cash leak faster as a system of energy when compared to technology.
So instead of actually dealing with the problem the right way, they just basically kick the can down the road. It's unbelievable, man.
A good example of this here, here we go. This is the British pound, all the way from today back to the year 1209. So we're looking at 800 years of history of the British pound here. And it looks like that the majority of the loss in value here is roughly 500 years ago. And while it's true that this was a massive decline in value, what we failed to realize here at the tail end in the last couple centuries here, even though it looks flat to us, these price declines are even worse than what is visually striking here over to the left. If we were to zoom in, for example, the majority of the collapse happens in this time period here. You can see just this going off a cliff, and you zoom in even more, closer and closer to today, it continues to just fall off a cliff. If you were to zoom in again, you see the same thing again and again, continuing on and on. Every year, every quarter, the value of the pound makes lower lows and lower highs, and it continues and perpetual decline towards zero. It doesn't matter how much you zoom in, every year it's just declining at an exponential rate. And the rate of the energy loss, the rate of value lost in the pound is faster than the rate at which technology is adding value. And this disparity here is why prices go up. We are increasing the total supply of money faster than technology brings value to society.
I absolutely love looking at charts like that the way he zoomed in, and no matter, because when you look at a big chart like that, it just seems like it just free fall down. But until he zoomed in, it got really close. And I knew, we all know about the money printing and inflation and stuff like that. But what I didn't know is that the money printing, this is why the prices go up. Because remember, the technology brought the prices down of everything because technology made our life easier. But like he said, the leak of cash coming into the system quicker than technology was being implemented into our world causes prices to go back up, and more people are going to be poor. Very interesting.
And this is why, for example, after the 2008 great financial crisis, we've seen prices go up so dramatically. Here I'm in America, so I'm speaking specifically to an American audience. However, this is the case around the world. House prices have gone up, stocks have gone up like crazy. And when people think about it, it doesn't inherently make sense, because everything is so much cheaper and so much more prosperous than it was just a mere 10, 15 years ago. The rate of change has been so dramatic in technology, and yet prices are near all-time highs. And this is because we tolerate an annual rate of fraud because we like to lie that we can get something for free when we actually can't. We want to shortcut hard work. We want to break the ledger. We want to create money out of thin air, aka value. We want to essentially break the laws of physics in order to get something for free that we don't want. Whether it's in the private or public sector, it doesn't matter. It's the same thing here. And fraud might sound like a harsh word to most people, but that is essentially the double spend problem. If you're aware of computer science, what the double spend problem is, it's basically where you create money out of thin air, or whether it's intentional or unintentional, it's where a system basically has a violation in it. It transforms from a closed system into an open system, essentially. And I know that's paraphrasing that there, but that's essentially what it is, where you have an energy leak within the system. And so this disparity between the collapsing real values of prices due to the exponential nature of technology and the rise of nominal prices due to the rate of inflation or the rate of debasement in the currency, the denominator of said prices, this is the rate of fraud or the violation of physics that I'm speaking of here.
You know, I love the way he called money printing fraud, because, ladies and gentlemen, that's what it is. You know what I mean? If you or I did it, we'd go to jail. I mean, it's called counterfeiting, ladies and gentlemen. I like the fact that he brought up violating physics, because the devaluation of the dollar is exactly that. That's what it's doing. You know, it's putting in more dollars than the system needs and chasing less goods. Like I always say, man, and you'll see it later on in the video, two things are always true and never lie. This is what I always go by: math and the law of physics.
And so the whole reason for the entirety of human history up to this point, that we invest, that we seek yields on our money, and we want returns on our money, we want to put our dollars to work, we want to make money on top of our money, is to outpace the rate of the money being printed and outpace the rate at which technology forces prices to go down. We are trying to outpace the energy leak that is in our underlying currency. And so systems that are less open than systems that are more open leak energy slower. You know, so for example, stocks do leak, but they leak slower than cash. But still, even though we aren't entirely aware that cash is losing value, that means that the quote-unquote returns and the yields that we get in our stocks and bonds are not near anywhere what we think they are.
So basically what he means by leaking is twofold. First is that the things that we invest in are being bought with the thing that is being leaked the most, right? And that's the dollar. The second thing is that the things that we buy or invest in is not a limited supply. A company can give out or create more shares. The government can issue more bonds. They can build more houses, etc. He'll go more into detail about this later.
So if we go, for example, this is the S&P 500 in red since the Great Financial Crisis here in 2008, which is quote-unquote the largest bull run in American history. And over here in this blue line, we have the total assets of the Fed, the ECB, the European Central Bank, and the Bank of Japan all together in blue. You know, you can see a striking correlation here. The S&P 500 is not really increasing in value. All it's doing is it's keeping track with the expansion of the balance sheets of these major central banks. You know, even though stocks are an open system and have an energy leak because companies can always issue more stock, the reality is that they're keeping up with the loss of energy in the balance sheets of these central banks. And so, say if we compare this, what does this really mean? If you divide the assets of these central banks, which is basically money, purchasing assets with money created out of thin air, aka printing money. If you divide that by the S&P 500, what you have here is in this green line up here towards the top. You know, this is what most people think the stock market is. The stock market is this exponential thing that just keeps going up forever. Stocks go up forever, you know, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But in reality, what the stock market actually does is it stays flat virtually, and it keeps track with the rate of printing of the currency. And so when we look at stocks in nominal terms, when we think that the dollar is a benchmark of value, we think stocks are increasing in value, when in reality they're not increasing in value. They are just leaking energy slower than the currency is leaking energy. And so then that disparity, that wedge of fraud basically that's occurring, is transferring wealth from the people that are recipients of the money later on to the people that are the first recipients of money. I mean, for example, you can see how even the dot-com bubble here in the stock market here at the turn of the century, stocks haven't even recovered from that in real terms, even though in nominal terms it looks like the dot-com bubble is far, far away from where we are today. And so this is really difficult for people to understand, but basically what we have here is we have stocks acting as a sort of monetized value. We're using stocks as a proxy money because we can't trust our cash, because our cash is leaking value every single year, but we can trust our stocks more because the stocks leak value slower than the cash.
Man, that was a great breakdown of that chart. And it is hard for people to understand that because we're taught the opposite way. I went to school for finance and they taught us, these charts and all that. And then looking at it like that, it's almost looking at it like it's looking backwards. Since I've been in the game with silver and Bitcoin stuff, I tell people this all the time about their stocks, bonds, and real estate. I tell them about this. All they look at is number go up, right? Because they're measuring everything in the fiat currency. That's all they know. And that currency is leaking energy faster than those said assets. That was an awesome breakdown, man. I highly suggest you go back and rewatch that and memorize. Then once you learn it, show it to your friends and family to teach them about this Ponzi scheme that we call the US dollar.